Yo, guys, wait, welcome to the Coast Connection, Embrace the Power with Christina Callaway and my boy, Mike G. Yeah, Christina's in the ATL and me and Mike G now chilling down in Tampa doing our things. Hey, guys, today we're going to talk about several different things. But one thing we're going to talk about we need to bring awareness to was last week was Overdose Awareness Week. Now we're going to talk about, there we go, Suicide Prevention Week. And so we're going to month, and we're just going to talk about the different things. And Christine is one of those kind of people that are out there, reaching out there, trying to make a difference, trying to help people and help them with their coaching and their mental health just to become a better version of themselves. Christina, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you both. I guess I can tell my followers he came through with his promise. When he was there the last time, he said he was going to have me on, so it happened.
See, the conversation we just had earlier, you have to throw a little shade. That's what I'm talking about.
You know, we're going to keep it real today.
Yes, always. Hey, so Christina, you were a gymnast and then you were a cheerleader and now, you know, I have to kind of bark about this because I'm a Georgia Southern graduate at the University
I'm not going to hold it against you.
of Georgia, the other Georgias, not Georgia
the
State.
Georgia. You know, they say the Ohio State. We say the Georgia.
Absolutely. So let me ask you a question. What was that journey like going from being a gymnast to a cheerleader at one of the top Division I schools? Because the chances of being a cheerleader at a Division I school is kind of hard.
Well, it really is. And the journey to get there was pretty hilarious on my side, I thought, anyway. Having been a competitive gymnast all the way through from age 6 all the way through high school, I was even practicing with the Georgia gymnastics team as a freshman. So in my mind, I was going to be a walk-on because they needed a vault specialist, and vault was my strongest event. So I had kept my skills up, and I thought, you know, one of my friends that went to high school with me, she said, "Will you try out for cheerleading with me?" And I thought, sure, why not? You know, it's so political. I don't know anyone. I probably won't make it, and it's no big deal. I will still be able to do gymnastics. That was my thought going in. And at the very first tryout, because during that time, we would have to go through 3 tryouts. And at the very first tryout, Suzanne Yocklin, the gymnastics head coach at that time, was one of the judges. I said, "Oh, I'm definitely getting cut for this one because she wants me on the team." Well, I went through that cut. And what was so odd was I didn't know that cheerleading got the following that it did. And especially at Georgia, I didn't know that it was a big deal. I later found out that that wasn't the case. But the hall that we did the tryouts in, it had like an upstairs. So it's kind of like a rotunda. So you could stand upstairs and look down on the floor. So when I walked, some of my friends came in and said, "Oh my God, Tina, there are so many people out there to see you." And I was like, "How do you know they're here to see me?" I was like, "We all trying out." They're like, "No, it's like the entire football team. They are out here to see you." And I thought, that is so bizarre. Well, here's the thing. The reason why I didn't try for cheerleading in high school, I was uber shy. The idea of
you
watching. Yes,
I know. What? Mike.
They do not believe it. And I promise you, I was like, there is no way that I'm going to get out there and fall on my face or do something ridiculous. So I never did. But I rationalized when I got to Georgia, I could try out. 80,000 people, 160,000 eyes. They're not all looking at me. It's going to be fine. They're here to watch the football, which, side note, that was my reason for trying out. I was like, "You mean I can go to the away games and get in the games free and be on the field?" What? Definitely. This is a no-brainer here. I'm definitely trying out. So I made it through the cuts and got to the third cut, the final cut, which they do at the G-Day game, the spring game, the inter squad. And usually at halftime, they announce the cheerleaders so that they can cheer the second half. Well, they announced the JV squad and my name wasn't called. And I looked at my friend. I was like, "You know what? This is kind of embarrassing. Let us just go ahead and leave because, you know, it's okay. If they don't see us and they won't realize that we tried out." Well, right before the end of the fourth quarter, they started calling out the varsity team. They did the guys first, and the first girl name they called was me. And I just kind of froze. And she was like, "Girl, they just called your name." I was like, "Wait, what?" So I went down there. My mom was there too, making a big whole scene. It was
that's what they do. That's what they do.
I I'm in college. Come on, I'm about to be a sophomore in college. I'm going to need you not to do that, Mom. But anyway, so that was my journey to get there, and it was really powerful. What I later did find out was because at each tryout, more and more football players heard about me, and they were like, "You got to go see this Black girl. Like, she is amazing. She is a great tumbler."
And you got to remember,
so,
so a lot of people don't realize it was like the 1980s. So they don't realize
yeah,
that that's the one part of the story that's real important, because now everybody looks and they go, oh, okay, but no, guys, this is the 80s. So
no,
it's
it's historical because
right,
it was
historical.
85. It was actually the year was 85. And at that time, Georgia had only, in its history of having a cheerleading program, had only had 4 cheerleaders, period, that were Black.
Wow.
Yes, so it was historical. But what I later did find out was that the football players just appreciated the fact that they had representation. That was a big, big thing for them, that they, had that representation on the sideline. And I enjoyed it. I mean, I learned a lot of life lessons, some that I'm still holding on to, some that I have, done better. And so, yeah, it was a great fun experience, and one that I, looking back on it, I kind of wish I would have done the gymnastics, because that's just my first love. And for me, cheerleading wasn't super hard. It was just a way for me to get
But
to
you
the
were a
games.
trailblazer. I mean,
Yeah,
when you think about it, it may seem trivial to a lot of people,
right.
but it's the small wins that open doors for me, so many others. And I even, like, when I made general, I didn't realize the pressure and everything that came with it until someone that had never seen someone like me in that position, and they said,
Mhm.
I want to thank you because you're the first person I met in that position. So,
Mhm.
when you become like a role model, it propelled
Yeah.
you into a whole different perspective of life, because people started looking at you in a different light. Maybe the football players were looking at you and saying, yeah, we got representation, but
Mhm.
you probably made a lot of people on campus that you never knew are proud the fact that you were
Yes.
down on that field.
It was, and I tell you, the other thing that it did too was it helped my teammates to understand what it was like to be Black during that time. I was the youngest one on the squad, and so whenever we would travel, the other ones were of age where they could go out, but I had to stay back with the advisor. I started college when I was 17, and so they, but I do remember a couple of places that we went, and I got spit on as we were driving to the stadium, and we would get into the sea of people. At one place, they were rocking the van that we were in. These were the fans. They were rocking, and so I heard the N word often. My partner, my cheer partner got a lot of issues from his fraternity brothers, because he was assigned the Black cheerleader, and so for them to come to my defense and protect me during that time was greatly appreciated. And to your point of being a trailblazer, when I look back on my life right now, it's something that has followed my entire family. My dad was a trailblazer in many instances. He took on an entire company. It was Westinghouse at the time,
Yes, I
and
know it. That was back in the day.
he sued them for discrimination and won.
Wow.
And so, as anybody knows, when you go up against a big machine that has deep pockets, it is not a quick thing. It happened for years, and it impacted our lives like
10 years at
tremendously.
least.
We had to be very careful about where we would go. Our dog got poisoned. We would just it was. But as a young child going through that, it definitely built some character in me that I can do hard things no matter how hard they are, how difficult they are. I can do hard things, and don't let oppression stop you from doing those things. So, being a gymnast, every meet that I would go to, I was the only Black. And I remember the first neighborhood that we moved into, we were the only Black family. So it was just kind of like there's this expectation of being this trailblazer of just because it has to be the first time for someone, and someone has to do it, and not everybody's willing to grab that assignment and embrace it and move forward with it.
All right, and the reason I think I've gotten through so much, and I love how you just frame that, because being a trailblazer and having to set standards before we get into talking about what you do on your professional side, is that I always had to remind myself, and I always reflect back to the lady in Little Rock, the girl, that picture of everybody screaming at her. So anytime my students are talking about stress or like their lives are miserable and this and this, I put her picture up in my classroom on the screen, and they all go, "Why do you always show this?" I said, if you think you're having a bad day, this is a bad day. I said, and she set the standard and made the difference. So I said, I appreciate everything you've done. And I know right now that you're helping Fisk, because you told us, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Fisk University?
So everybody around the world is aware of the fact that Fisk University, which is an historically Black college, and university, it is the first one to bring in a gymnastics team. And yes, definitely props for that, because what I can tell you is, as a gymnast, as a Black gymnast growing up, the thought of being able to do gymnastics or continue my gymnastics at an all Black institution, it would have meant the world to me. And for these young ladies, these 16 young ladies who are the trailblazers for this, it is phenomenal. And I actually know the head coach, Corinne Tarver, and she was a gymnast at UGA. She was the first Black gymnast at UGA.
Yeah.
I didn't go that route. She was the first one. So she is not only the head gymnastics coach at Fisk, she is also the athletic director, which is huge. Let's just talk about it being a female that is an athletic director, because their numbers as far as female athletic directors is very small.
Yeah, she's like, she's definitely an icon.
Definitely an icon. And so I did Brown Girls Do Gymnastics, which is a nonprofit organization that helps Black youth through with acrobatics, tumbling, gymnastics. They were the ones that spearheaded the, I guess what you would say, the petition for HBCUs to bring in. So they were very instrumental in terms of bringing gymnastics to Fisk. And they had a conference this past July where they asked me to come and do a couple of workshops with the parents and also with the athletes. And even though this particular workshop was not, Fisk didn't have anything to do with it per se, because it was a Brown Girls Do Gymnastics one, it was housed at Fisk University.
Which is great.
It was awesome. I mean, so awesome, because the athletes got to interact with those 16 young ladies that are on the gymnastics team, and just to see their eyes get so big and be able to look up to someone that looks like them. And it was just so inspiring. And so we did a panel discussion at the end of the conference, and one person stood up in the audience and said, well, where is everyone on mental health in sports? And of course, that was right down my alley. And I, shared with them what I do, that I am a performance and mindset coach for athletes, parents, coaches, and organizations. And that I was in negotiations with becoming a performance and mindset coach for an acrobat and tumbling team here in Georgia at a small college in Georgia. At Emmanuel College. And so Corinne stood up and said, and I want her here, so I need you all to fundraise. That was in July. And by August, we had done all the negotiations, and she, has brought me on as the gymnastics team's performance and mindset coach. And then starting at the beginning of next year, the opportunity to work with this volleyball team and the women's basketball team. So it's pretty exciting, because those young ladies have a lot of pressure on them, not just doing gymnastics as if that wasn't enough, but their eyes are on them and their success, and just helping them to facilitate the conversation that would help them to be able to perform under that kind of pressure, because that is a lot of pressure.
Yeah. So let me ask you this real quick. So you've already watched several sports athletes, top athletes, catch living hell because they have said, hey, I need to step away. And we know what kind of irritated me is because some of them are people of color. And because they got to such the pinnacle of their careers already at a young age, the amount of negativity given to some of these Black females that literally said, look, I need a mental health day. You know, even Serena kind of stepped back a little bit and said, hey, I need to just take a moment. I just had a chat. I need to take a moment. And, you know, and she's 40 years old now. You know, the rhetoric that we've watched some of these tennis players and some of these other female athletes, when they want to just step away from the game, and the ridicule to get, is it just that our society needs to wake the hell up and figure out that, you know what, hey, you know, everybody's human, and there are some parameters that at some point people actually get burned out, or people have to take a moment, because in the military, post-traumatic stress, it happens all the time. And, you know, big boys don't cry. And the issue we have is then we amplify it to suicide. So I really respect anybody that needs to take a break mentally and step away. So, you know, what's your thoughts on just seeing the stress that's put on women today, corporate? And I'll say this, even going into corporate America, be careful what you wish for, because when you get it, you don't see the second, third order effects of everything that comes with it.
Absolutely. That's so true. I actually was listening to someone today talk about an experience that they had where they heard someone else say, a lot of times we'll ask God for a promotion or a blessing and that sort of thing, and our dream doesn't seem like it's coming alive. Like, and it was Sherry Shepherd. She was being interviewed, and she said that her pastor said, God is not going to elevate you or allow that dream to happen until you are in a position where you can manage it. And so sometimes we think our dreams are being delayed, or maybe we're on the wrong track because it's not happening like we want it to. But in actuality, we have to grow into the dream. We have to grow into the character of the dream. We have to grow into the expectations of the dream. To your point of female athletes, Black female athletes, Black female execs, because I have worked with high performing execs as well. And why that is that it's not allowed for them. This is a whole nother show that we could do, but it stems back to that that time and period where Black women were used for everyone, and if they had anything left over, which they usually did not, they would give that to their families, but they themselves were not even on the radar. Like some people say, oh, they were last. It would have been a gift to be last. They weren't even on the radar for themselves. But the expectation is they need to be everything to everyone and do it 100 times greater than that. I was so proud of Simone back in the Tokyo Olympics when she was going through the twisties, and she just said, enough. I'm not doing it. Right. I don't care if my entire country has this expectation of me. I can die. I don't know where I am in the middle of the air. And while it doesn't, to the untrained eye, it didn't look like she didn't know where she was. But immediately when she did that last vault before she came down and said no more, I said, oh my God, she has no idea where she is in the air. And being a gymnast, I felt that feeling. You don't know. The only thing that I can maybe equate it to is someone in a simulator for flying, and they don't have their controls. They don't know the ground from the cloud.
It's called losing the horizon. And once you lose the horizon, you don't know if you're up or down.
Or down. You have no idea. Your kinesthetics go wacko jacko. I mean, they are just all over the place. And that's what the twisties is like. It's like I'm in the air, but is the ground above me or below me? Like I have no idea. And when you're performing skills that are named after you, that means that no one else in the world can do them but you. Yeah, you do get to call a time, not just even a timeout, but I'm not doing this. I don't care. You can't talk me out of it. I've got so much. And what they didn't even, no one wanted to take into consideration. She had just come through, or she was in the process of going through, dealing with all the trauma from the Larry Nassar, from the sexual abuse that had taken place in her life.
Right, because they had been in the trials. They've been in the trials for almost 2 years.
Absolutely.
And having to relive that. And people, you know, everybody just kind of, oh, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter. You know,
it matters.
It's traumatic for what those women went through. And it's sad that it went on so long.
It did. And we as humans have this knack where we hit the override button. It's like our body sends us a signal, no more, you need a break, you need to stop. Mentally, I can't do it. And we're like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm gonna rep out one more set. And it's like you rep out that one more set and you rip something and you're like, the body is like, see, I told you, you're not listening to me. And just there
Right.
comes a point in time in the mind where the mind is the strongest organ in our body, and it says, I'm not going to let you hit this override button anymore. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to shut everything down. Things that you used could do with ease, you're going to struggle. You're not even going to be able to do those because you don't have enough sense right now to protect you. And so when it gets that deep in mental health, because I can tell you from my own personal experience, having attempted suicide, that when you got to the point where you are ready to carry it out, there have been so much going on and you've dealt with so much for so long. You are exhausted. You don't see another way out. You're definitely not thinking clearly. You're not choosing death by suicide because you want to hurt others. The worst thing that someone can say about an individual who has chosen death by suicide and actually carries it out is the fact that they were selfish. Let me tell you, as a person who contemplated it, prepared to do it, I thought that I would be relieving the burden from those who loved me, because they were constantly trying to keep me lifted, trying to, keep me spun out of that
Right.
dark space. And so if your audience can grab anything about this, with this being National Suicide Prevention Month, take that, and also let's change the language from an individual committed suicide, because that comes with a negative stigmatism. That back when the word suicide first came out, it was a crime. And we have had a very difficult time letting that go. It is not a crime. It is, so you choose the words death by suicide because it is the choice that they ultimately ended up feeling that was all that was available to them.
Right, and you make a great point, because I have family members commit suicide. I have family members, even after being in the military and being around so many people going through so many dark times, and people don't realize that even if you're in depression, that dark cloud of like, man, there's no way out of all this. And it's so weird as now I look at my life now, because I've been in dark places. Trust me, after 30 years in the military,
Oh, definitely.
you've seen some bad stuff.
Definitely.
Once I came out of it, and it's weird now that I step back, I look at everything I have now. But I will tell people all the time when they see me being happy and everything, I said, you don't realize the struggle of where I've been, and
Yeah.
to where I've gotten to. And so
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I think people just take everyone for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're happy, because I think once I got out of my dark place, I was happy for the fact that I was able to get out of it, but I appreciated everything around me a lot more.
Absolutely. Definitely appreciating it more. And for me, what I did was I took it and said, now how can I help others? Because I don't want to live my life from just a inward perspective. I made it, good luck, I'll make it on your own. There were lots of integral people that were involved and that helped me during that time.
Awesome.
And without them, I would not have been able to do it. And so, like we were talking earlier about some of the high profile women who have chosen death by suicide, and the pressure to perform, the pressure to meet expectations that some people may feel are unrealistic. But I want people to stop and think, what those same expectations are those same expectations put on our counterparts. And
Right.
in many instances, it is not. And we have to make sure that we are doing the things. Don't wait and get permission to take your mental health days, and however long that takes. You deserve that. You've got to give that to yourself. And I always equate it to being on an airplane and them giving you the instruction, in the event that this plane loses pressure,
Right.
your mask will fall down. You put yours on first, and then you assist someone else. And that analogy, I think, because it gets overused a lot, that people don't understand the significance of that. when you're in high altitudes, it's very difficult to breathe. And when it's decreasing at a rapid rate, it literally squeezes your lungs to where you can't. And with everything else that's going on with your adrenaline flowing, because you don't know what's going to happen when the plane or if the plane, crashes. So you're not thinking straight. You need to be able to breathe to get oxygen to your brain so that you can do that trauma response, which is flight. We want to get out of there. And a lot of times with the mental health and the athletes that I've worked with over the many years I've been working with them, they go through that trauma response of freezing. So people are very familiar with fight and flight.
Right.
That freeze is the one where your mind's like, you're not going to keep overriding me. This is not safe. You're not safe, but you don't know it. So I'm going to freeze you out. And so the athletes get really bummed about it because they're like, but I was just doing this and I don't understand why I'm not anymore. So they'll label it as I've got a mental block. And that's not, there's a difference between a performance block and a mental block. And a performance block, you can figure it out, dial things back, put yourself in a safe situation where your body feels like, okay, I can handle this, and then gradually come forward out of that. A mental block is where there are obstructions to you being able to move forward. And it is identifying those obstructions and removing them. Whereas with performance block, it's usually that you have started going too rapidly and you're moving at a rapid pace where you aren't ready yet in a safe way. And then there's a fourth trauma response called fawning. And it's just like what it says. When you think about a fawn, how they just kind of stand there and,
look around, right?
Yeah. And they just kind of look around, or they acquiesce. It's like they're in agreement with everything that is said for them, about them, as in terms of what they're supposed to do. They're going to acquiesce in that situation to their detriment. So that's fawning. It's like, as long as I keep this individual happy, as long as I'm doing what they're asking me to do, then everything's going to be fine in my life. And that's a trauma response. And that is not good for them either. So what I'm really thrilled about is the fact that when Simone, being on the stage that she was on, put mental health on the map from the perspective of, for women, it's okay to take time for yourself.
That's right.
And as well as for athletes, it's okay to be in charge. Like, your performance is your performance. No one owns you or your performance. And I think a lot of times especially when it comes to athletes where people pay to go to watch them perform, people get this misnomer and this misconception of, well, we're paying their salary. That is
so narrow-minded and so twisted. It's kind of like when a woman has to take off for for mental health or for having pregnant or whatever, and the guys in the office will go, well, she's off again. Well, yeah, because you ain't had a baby. You ain't, you don't have to take care of the kid. But your wife takes off and you're at work. Just the hypocrisy of the system kills me sometimes.
Yes, definitely. And I'm really glad that a lot of organizations are doing paternity leave for fathers and encouraging them to be there with their families and going through that as much as they can. Because to your point, men aren't going to they can't physically experience all that's going on with a woman. But being able to be there through those, that first month and a half or so, it is vital in terms of the bond that it creates for the family, for the father and the child, and as well as for the husband and the wife, so that they can, there's a new shift in their relationship, and having to be able to figure that out, they need that space. So I'm just glad that mental health is taking the aspect that it's taking. People are recognizing it's not that taboo word anymore. Like, oh my gosh, you've got a therapist or you've got a mental coach. It's getting to the point where it's like, oh, you don't?
Well, Mike's my therapist. And he has to keep me straight. So as we get ready to wind down, hey, Christina, when people want to find out where you're at, Mike, throw our website up. Christina, if somebody wants to reach out to you and they hear this and they're like, oh my God, I want to hire her. I want her to come in and speak at our event. How do we get her? So Mikey, show it. There we go.
There you go. So basically go to my website, which you see right here, and just schedule that call and we'll work it out. We'll talk it out. Also, Follow me on all of my social media. I've
Oh,
made
yeah.
it super easy for you all. It's Christina Mindset Coach on everything,
On
whether it be
everything.
LinkedIn, whether it be Instagram, Facebook. I'm even on TikTok. It's not that great, but I'll get better. I've got an intern that's helping me with
Hey,
it.
Mike,
I'm even
I don't have her TikTok, where we got to get the TikTok.
it looks bad right now. It's okay though. There's room for growth. I've even started a Pinterest page because a lot of people look up information and they want, help. So my social media person is helping me to develop that. And it just takes time. To your point, I'm also still working a full-time job as I grow my business too. So I'm not on the floor coaching gymnastics anymore, but I am directing an entire program. So for the county. So yeah.
Hey, nothing's for free in this world. And they always say, if you were going to shape the world, you got to work the world. So if you had to leave any advice to anyone out there and leave your imprint in history or your fingerprints in the sand, what would you give advice to some young female athletes out there going forward?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think whether you're an athlete, non-athlete, your life is only as good as your mindset. You got to take care of it so that you can have a good life.
I love it. All right. Hey, Christina, always Miss Callaway. I appreciate you coming.
Good
I appreciate
it.
Yeah, and you shape the world and you make a difference always. Mike, go ahead, man.
It was a great show, great information. You on point, and it's a lot of. We got to do a part 2 maybe later on.
I would love to come back and do a part 2.
Talk about the podcast life that you're doing. You've been. I remember when you started, and now you grinding.
I look back on it now, Mike, and I laugh. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at how bad that was.
You got to start somewhere. I remember.
You do. Everybody has a beginning, and we learn and we grow from it, and it's okay to do hard things. We all can do hard things, and just because something's hard, do not shy away from it, even if it means partnering with someone to help you to to facilitate that mindset shift. That's what I do. You don't have to do hard things alone, but you can do hard things. We all can.
Teamwork makes the dream work. People.
Absolutely.
All right, and as we always say, Christina, much love to you. Blessed Labor Day weekend, and have a good time. And don't want to see you on CNN. As me and Mike always say, keep it
rolling.
Thank you so much.